Some of you have been traveling from far away and needed a good night's rest to catch up. And we're glad you're here this morning. So just a couple things, just to let you know, each day we'll probably have more people coming in. And what's happening is people are sharing what they're experiencing at this event. And they're so thrilled that they're sharing it with their friends, their relatives. We're getting more calls. And so as the days go on, you're going to see it's going to be full. So with that, well, we're thankful for that because we want this message is for everybody. And this is a great opportunity for people to hear. And a couple things. Now, with the restrooms with more people, please, we have the restrooms here going down the hall. And then we also have restrooms on the outside. So 2 sets of restrooms, use these if they're not in use, or, you can go outside too and use those. Just wanted to let you know that. On the blood pressure, the blood draw clinic, now that's going to be this Friday at 8 o'clock. I know some of you have just come in today, so we just want to make that announcement. If you're interested in signing up, we have sheets in the foyer. To sign up, you can take a sheet. It's going to tell you the different blood panels available. And those are made specifically based on the lectures that Barbara is doing. So what you're hearing, you can get tested for that at our blood clinic. And that's at 8 o'clock on Friday morning. And you'll want to plan to fast for that. So we have a sign-up sheet. We're doing 5-minute increments of blood draws. So go ahead and just sign up. If you have any questions, you can ask us. So this morning is going to be on natural remedies. And so Barbara's going to share with us what to do with amazing things that you can get in your garden that you can buy at the store with a potato, with ginger, with garlic and onion. And these things, what God has given us is just so powerful, so powerful. And I use these remedies and they work. They work. And the first thing you do, you'll know to go to your refrigerator and get these things instead of the first call going to the doctor. So this is what we're trying to share with you so you don't have to wait for a doctor's appointment. Before we start, we'd like to have a word of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we're just so thankful for you above all. You are the healer. All healing comes from you, and you've given us amazing, amazing tools and simple things that we can do. And we pray now, as Barbara demonstrates, that your spirit will be with her, and bless us and bless everyone here today that are in attendance. In Jesus' name, amen. And now here's Barbara.
Thank you and welcome everyone. This is probably one of the most popular lectures because we're not touching your knife and fork. We're not asking you how much water you drink, if you're easing off your coffee, and what time you're going to bed. We're just going to be talking about natural remedies. We live in an incredible body that's got an inbuilt ability to heal itself, and it will when you give it the right conditions. Yes, it's very important to go to bed early. It's very important to drink your water. It's very important to ease off the stimulants because these treatments will be more effective when you're giving the body the basic conditions for healing. So let's begin. The first one I'd like to look at is onion. And the onion holds a place in my heart because it was my very first natural remedy. And it was my very first natural remedy that I did probably 43 years ago. My first daughter had an earache, and I did what we are taught to do. If we get sick, what are we taught to do? Go straight to the doctor. He gave her a course of antibiotics. But 6 weeks later and 4 courses of antibiotics later, I'm back in the doctor's surgery. He's writing the 5th course of antibiotic. Do you know, I thank God that I had that feeling. Do you know what the feeling was? I don't want to do this. I don't want to give my little 18-month-old one, I don't want to give her any more drugs, but I don't want to hurt her. I don't want her to go deaf, because everyone told me she's going to go deaf if I don't do anything, but I don't know what else to do. I have no idea what else to do. And I was brought up in a home where my father was an inventor, and we were taught to question everything except medicine. Is that the same with you? Is it your experience? You're taught to question everything but not medicine? Well, I began to question. I said to the doctor, will my daughter be on this for the rest of her life? Am I coming to that conclusion? He was challenged by my question, so he gave me a referral to an ear, nose and throat specialist. The ear, nose and throat specialist looked in Emma's ears, looked in her mouth and said, the child's teething. Give her these drops to keep the eustachian tubes clear, and that was it. So 2 years later, my 16-month-old son gets an earache. I don't tell anyone. I don't go to the doctor, but I've got to do something. So I went to the old lady next door. I'm 25, she's 85. I said, what did your mother do when you were a little girl and you had an earache? She said, Mum would steam up an onion on the stove. I ran home very fast. I steamed up the onion on the stove, and when it was soft, I cut it open. And what you do is you leave the skin on, because then that'll hold it in place. And what you're looking at is the rings. Now, I have since learnt that when remember, it's very hot, you squeeze it and get a few drops from your hot cooked onion, and that can be put in the ear. That's what I have since learnt. But remember, I knew nothing. I knew nothing when I did this. And what I did was I steamed up the onion on the stove, and then I wrapped it in a cloth. I wrapped it a few times over, and I put it on my arm till it was the correct temperature. And James was breastfeeding, and I put it next to my arm and against his ear. And I think every mother that's breastfed their children knows you can do anything to them when they're breastfeeding. Just about anything. And James fell asleep. And he slept for 2 hours. What does that tell you? He's not in pain. And when he woke up, he was happy. I watched him all day. I watched him all the next day. He was happy. I was like a woman possessed. There's something else you can do. There must be more. And I started to think, well, what did people do before antibiotics? What did our great-great-grandparents do way back then? They had their ways. And as I began to investigate, and I saw books about what the Red American Indians used to do and their simple treatments. I read about Dr. Kellogg, who had a 1,000-bed health retreat in Michigan, who people from all over the world came and they did natural treatments. I started to investigate and found out about water treatments. I got a book that had A, B, C, D, E, F, G on it, and the first one was E for ear, onion poultice. You see, onion is a drawer, and it'll draw. So what I have found with some people, that a hole will be made in the eardrum and pus will come out. And if the body makes the hole, not a problem. But if something goes in and makes a hole, big problem. You see, the body is a very intelligent organism. God made it that way, and it knows what to do. And sometimes, as in my son, there was no hole and there was no pus coming out of the ear. I'd like to suggest that it eased it away, and maybe any waste was just taken away through the bloodstream. We had one of our staff who had an earache, so she did the onion on the ear, and she had to do an onion on the ear every day, morning and night, for 7 days. How many people after 5 days would say, well, this isn't working, I've got to go to the doctor? So I was intrigued as to why. why it took so long. And then as I talked to her, I discovered that she had had earaches as a child. And they just kept giving her antibiotics all her childhood. She said she'd have about 5 courses every year of antibiotics. So I'd like to suggest that now she's older, she's giving her body the right conditions. You see, a very common cause of earaches is a build-up in the mutation tubes caused by dairy. And she had a dairy allergy and didn't realise it and was given a lot of cow's milk as a child. Also, refined sugar just feeds it. And I have a friend who's a physician. She said whenever she gets a child with an earache, she tells the parents, take them off dairy, take them off sugar, especially if they continually get earaches. There's something wrong. I'd like to suggest that her ears decided to do a cleanse. Now, every time she put the onion on, it brought great relief. So when great relief is experienced, what's your body saying? This is good. So when there's a sickness, no matter what it is, you'll always look at the history to be able to link the threads together as to why this may be happening. And your symptoms are the body saying, can you do something, please? And so her history was she'd had recurrent ear aches as a child. Symptoms were the ear is aching. So she tried the cooked onion poultice, and her body said, thank you, I like that. But the next day she had to do it again and had to do it again. Do you know, the body knows what to do, and sometimes it might need to happen a few times. With my son James, it was 1-2 hour. But with others, it may be more. And then you would have a look at what's the person eating? Why would these earaches be recurring? And it will give you a bit of an idea. Before I was banned in Australia, there were 4 doctors that got me to come to their town and give lectures like this every year, because they knew that if everyone had these simple natural treatments, then emergency would not be overloaded. And how many people get a serious accident, come to emergency like I did when I broke my arm? Do you know what they do? They called rampure. You know what rampure is? You're on like a trolley thing out on the ramp because emergency is chock-a-block with people. And you know why it's chock-a-block with people? They don't know what to do for an earache. They don't know what to do for a burn. They don't know what to do for a sore finger. They don't know what to do for this or that. And it's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Sustain Me. I wanted a handbook on natural remedies. So if there's a problem in the home, you go to the handbook. If you're really concerned at all, go to the doctor, get an opinion. But you know what you can say with that opinion? Thank you so much for your opinion. I'll seriously consider this. And then you go home. Now you know what it is. Then you can look at the book and try natural remedies. But also remember, sometimes it takes time. With my friend Evelyn, took 7 days. 7 days. Sometimes it takes time. But she was patient because she didn't want to go to the doctor because she knew all he had, his box of tricks, was just antibiotics. And she knew that she could quite possibly do that, and then as soon as the antibiotics are finished, the earache comes back. The body knows what it's doing, so it's important to go with it. So that's the cooked onion poultice. You can also use a cooked onion poultice for a boil. I had a man email me and he had a boil on the inside of his nose. Can you imagine how painful that would be? He said, you know, they're recurring. I get them every few months. It is so painful. I can't rest. I can't do anything. I just live on painkillers. And if I go to the doctor, he just gives me antibiotics. So I investigated and found out that his diet wasn't very good. And when the diet's not very good and waste builds up in the body, often it'll throw the waste off via a boil. But I suggested a cooked onion poultice. And of course, you can't put that inside the nose. But I told him what we do. And with the cooked onion for a boil, once it's the right temperature, obviously we don't want to burn the patient because then we have to do another natural remedy for burns. There's a bit of common sense there. You know, common sense isn't very common today. And when it's the right temperature, you can just put that straight onto the boil. But what it's important to do, and it's also very important to do this with, this is press and seal. There's no cling wrap? Anyway, well, try this one. Okay, I'll just put that over there. Don't quite know what that's doing. But what I do, and I'll show you with the cooked onion, is you do the cooked onion and you put it on the ear and then you cover it with plastic. And what I find handy is you get cling wrap and you just fold it over and over and you get a square, and that's very workable. You get cling wrap and put that over, and what the plastic does is it insulates. And if you can insulate it and keep it warm, you can keep it on. As soon as that poultice gets cold, you've got to take it off. Because if it gets cold, it'll chill and that can cause ache. So with my son falling asleep at the breast, I laid him on the onion poultice on a towel folded up about 8 times. So I knew that if he fell asleep on the onion with a folded towel underneath, that it would keep it warm, and it did. And it did. In fact, it kept it warm for about 2 hours. Thanks. I also need about 4 more of these. This is what we want, the cling wrap. What did they do before cling wrap? Well, I certainly wanted to know what they did before cling wrap. And what they did before cling wrap, in one of the old books, said they used oiled silk. Or what I have often done is a square of wool. I love knitting and sewing, and I often make myself a woolen skirt. And so what I do with the wool left over from that, I'll cut up little squares about that size, and they certainly can insulate. So that's about the size of the square we'd put over. So if the person has a boil, you'd put that straight onto the skin and then you cover that with plastic. Now, I don't really like plastic on the skin. You know, it's sort of made out of chemicals. But if you'll notice, there's not much touching my skin. It's mostly touching the onion. And then you'd bandage that on. So the man that had the boil on the inside of the nose, he emailed me a few days later. He said the next day he woke up and his whole half face was swollen. So what he did, he got an onion, he steamed it up and he cut it in half and he basically put it like this on his face. And he said he covered it with a bit of plastic and he bandaged his whole head. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. Left an eye out so he could see. And he said, and then he just laid down. He just laid down and he slept for several hours, got up, had something to eat, and then laid down again in the afternoon. And he kept the onion on. Thank you. He kept the onion on because it felt so good. Now, this is one of the hardest things that I have to teach people is this. I'll write it in very big letters. Listen. Listen. And he listened. He had relief. He kept that on for 12 hours. And when he woke up, because he'd had a sleep in the morning, had something to eat, sleep in the afternoon, when he woke up, it was all wet. And when he took it off, he realised it was all draining out. All the swelling had gone down and it was just all draining out. He said, unbelievable. He said, I have to tell you, I've been struggling with this for nearly a year now. He said, at least once a month, this sort of thing happens. And he said, I have never recovered so quickly. He said, I have never had I don't know whether I'd say little pain, but instead of 8, 10 out of 10 pain, he had like a 4, 5 out of 10 pain. So there was discomfort there. He said, this is unbelievable. And I've also had other people tell me they've put it on the boil and left it even for 24 hours. And if you can keep it warm, you can keep it there for 24 hours. And when they take it off, everything comes away. You see, the heat and the drawing power of the onion, it draws all the waste to a head, so to speak, and then the moistness of the onion breaks the top very gently, so that when they take it off, everything comes away. Because most people, when they get boils, aren't they trying to squeeze it and push it? And that's incredibly painful. It's an incredibly painful experience. But the onion makes an incredible difference. It brings relief almost as soon as it's on it, and then it pulls everything into place. And one man said days he's usually dealing with the boil. One application of the onion poultice over 24 hours, and when he took it off, everything came away. And he said then he just had a little bandage on the hole, and it healed very, very quickly. So that's the cooked onion. So for the earache and also for a boil. Now I want to show you what to do with raw onion. Now don't be surprised if when I'm cutting up this onion I start crying. And we know that because we've all experienced it. So the fact that a person's eyes start watering when they're cutting up an onion shows you that the onion juice is a specific for the respiratory, because it thins the mucus. That's why the person starts sneezing or runny nose or something like that. So that's where we use it. We use it for respiratory. So the first poultice I'm going to show you with the raw onion is for a sore throat. So I've got a couple of slices here, and I've done the slices quite thin. And I take a cloth. I don't know about you, but me having 8 children, about once a year, the teenage boy puts his foot through the sheet. Is that right? Yes. But, you know, it means the sheet was getting quite thin. And when you've got 8 children, the sheets get thin and old. They are the best sheets for poultices. So if you've got a sheet that is thin and starting to tear, I'll tell you a funny story about when I go away. So when I go away, my husband's got this great idea. He sleeps on his side of the bed for a week, my side of the bed for a week, then he washes the sheets. He's very proud of himself. And he puts the same sheets back on the bed, even though there are sheets in the cupboard. So when I got back last year, when I went to get into bed, there's a big hole in the sheet. He's just worn them out. They're the best sheets for poultices because they're cotton, hopefully, and they're thin. And you want cloth that the juice will go through. So they're the best. And if you don't have 8 children and you don't have sheets that are falling apart, you can just buy cheesecloth, or you could buy, I know in places like Walmart, I hope I said that right. You call it Walmart. It's my accent. They have dishcloths, and you can buy packets of dishcloths that are about that big, and it's fine cotton. So I'm hoping you can see that. So what I've done here, we're up on the board, so I probably don't need to do that. We've got a camera there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold that over like this, and then I've got a little package. And the area here that's only got one layer of cloth, that's what's going to go on my neck. And then I can cover that with the cling wrap, and then either put a bandage on or a scarf. And that's very good for sore throats. I've had a lady ring me up. She said, what can I do? My daughter's got strep throat. And I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. When I was a little girl, it was called sore throat. Have you noticed that? But you know what the mother said? It's strep throat. I said, how do you know it's strep throat? Yes, I know it's streptococci. So how did you know it was streptococci? Well, they did a test. Well, there's no need. You just got a sore throat. And as you'll see this afternoon when we talk about the immune system, streptococci, that's just part of our immune system working. And the mother said, I have to give her antibiotics because the doctor said it could go to her brain. Have you ever heard of sore throats going to the brain? But unfortunately, we're taught as children to have total trust. But it's not necessarily so. And if the doctor had said that to me, I would have said, thank you so much for your opinion. I would take the script, maybe on the way out it slips into the bin, but maybe they'll get upset about that, so I'll take it home, and I would put the sliced onion on the throat. And it was a couple of weeks ago, a mother told me that she did this to her teenage daughter, and within 30 minutes, the sore throat, it wasn't gone, but it had gone from 8 out of 10 can't even swallow down to about a 5 out of 10. And you can sleep with that on all night. Your bed partner might not like your perfume, but it'll give relief to a sore throat. And what did we do as children when we had sore throats? We just had lemon and honey drinks, is that right? Well, in a minute, I'm going to show you a very fancy lemon and honey drink that's even got more things in it. But we'll go there in a minute. I want to show you what else you can do with the onion. And I'm chopping the onion up into little squares now. And the remedy that I'm about to show you is the best remedy I know for night coughing. So when someone's got a cold, sometimes they can cough for a couple of weeks, and it seems to always be worse in the night. If someone has a cold or a cough, it's a good idea to have a very light evening meal. Having a heavy evening meal, that can really increase night coughing. But I've chopped up the onion, and I'm going to put the onion in the cloth. And what you do to the person is you put their foot straight onto the chopped onion. You put the foot on the chopped onion, you wrap the cloth around it, put the foot in a plastic bag, and then put a sock on. So it's a very easy one to do. And it's okay because they're just going to bed. It'd be a bit hard to walk around on them. You put half an onion on one foot and another half on the other foot. And I was at my daughter Emma's house a few years ago, and her little boy James, he was only 3, but he had a cold. She gave him a hot lemon and honey, hot bath, put him to bed, and he coughed, and he coughed, and he coughed. He must have coughed for half an hour. We kept thinking, he'll go to sleep in a minute, but he didn't. So we got him up, we put the onion on the bottom of his feet, wrapped it in a cloth, put the plastic bag on. So the plastic bag's not touching the skin. The plastic bag is there to insulate it. So sheets don't smell like onion. And then you put a sock on the top, and that just holds it in place. So we did this to little James, one on each foot, put him back to bed. Not one more cough. Not one. Not one. And he just coughed nonstop for half an hour. Quite incredible. You almost have to do it to believe it. See, the soles of our feet have the largest pores in the whole body. And when those pores are touching that onion, the onion juice comes up and the body knows what to do with it. Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible says that God gave herbs for the service of man. So they come in to serve you. That's what I love about the herbs. They work with the healing powers of the body. So that's what you can do for a night cough. Now I'm going to make an onion cough syrup. And to make the onion cough syrup, you chop an onion, and what you're going to put in the jar is probably about, that'd be half an inch or about a centimetre of chopped onion. And then we're going to drizzle on approximately a teaspoon of honey. And then another layer of onion. And you just keep doing this until your jar's full or you've run out of onion. Put another layer of onion on it. I first read about this about 25 years ago. And the recipe said to use sugar. But I've never given my children sugar. So I decided, well, if it works with sugar, surely it'll work with honey. because honey, of course, is very soothing on a sore throat. And honey is great in that no bacteria lives in honey, and it works very nicely. So we've got sticky honey. This is the last layer, so I'm going to put maybe 2 teaspoons of honey on the last layer. And then that is going to sit. And we let that sit, and you'll see by the end of the class, a little bit of syrup will have formed. But ideally, you let that sit for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, you strain the onion out, and there's your cough syrup. Now, at the moment, we've got thick, sticky honey, and we've got onion, but the syrup is liquidy, almost like water. So what would be the dose? What would be the dose on how much you take? So maybe for an adult, it might be 2 teaspoons. For a child, it might be 1 teaspoon. For a little 2-year-old, it might be half a teaspoon. For a baby, I would put my finger in it and just dot it on the tongue. And the lady said, Barbara, no, we're told you cannot give a baby under 12 months honey. Have you heard that one? Have you seen what they inject into babies as soon as they're born? So don't talk to me about safety. I'll leave that one up to you. Gee, we've forgotten what's safe, I think. We're not giving a little tiny baby half a cup of this stuff, just a little bit. But you will see by the end of our class that a syrup will start to form there. So in our Natural Remedies 2 class tomorrow, you will see it. And I'm sure we can find a little plastic spoon and everyone can, I think there's enough for everyone to have a dot. But it's quite nice. My children used to love it. People say, how long does it last in the fridge? I say, it didn't last long in my house. The children really liked it. My grandchildren, they line up. If there's Coles when they visit, they all get a teaspoon of onion syrup or honey onion syrup. So I don't know how long it would last, but I would endeavour to say it would last almost indefinitely because, honey doesn't go off. But I had a lady tell me, a German lady, she said, I've had a jar in my fridge for 8 years, so it lasts quite a while. And now I'd like to go over to garlic. I always buy Australian garlic because garlic coming from overseas can be irradiated. And I also am keen to support local industry. So garlic is a remarkable herb. It's very strong antibacterial, antifungal, and so can be used for anything like that. And I'm going to take a clove and show you how we can give garlic even to a small baby. No, it's not by mouth. And garlic is very high in sulfur. So when people have stomach ulcers, it can hurt a little bit. And in a minute, I'll write up the recipe for the fancy lemon and honey drink I talked about. It's called the flu bomb. But I'm going to show you how you can put this on a baby. At any age, you can do this to a baby. We're going to finely slice the garlic. So I'm not using the outer one, I'm using the inner ones that's got, so we want juice either side. And I've got a little cloth here. And I'm going to place the garlic on the cloth and then fold it over like so. And then you wrap that on the bottom of the baby's feet. It's important to see this because if that garlic touches the baby's skin, it will blister the skin. So notice what I did there. I've got cloth between the garlic and the baby's skin. Now, my sister knew of this recipe, and her little grandson had a bad cold, and he was only 6 months old. So she did this, but she made a mistake. She grated it. And she grated it so that there was lots of juice, and wrapped it on the baby's foot. And half an hour later, the baby's screaming. So they ran to the baby, took it off, and there's a big blister on the bottom of the baby's feet. So just remember that story. But I have never blistered the children's feet, because I just do a slice of garlic, that's all. I've done 2 slices of garlic, but the cloth is between the slices of garlic and the baby's feet. And then you can put a little bootie on or a little sock on, and within a few minutes you can smell the garlic on the baby's breath. And remember Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herbs for the service of man. So when the garlic is taken up into the blood, the body knows where to take it. It can take to the chest, and it can loosen congestion on the chest. It can help to clear the airways just by applying it to the feet. We have an incredible body. I think I mentioned last night, it takes 1 drop of blood 1 minute to go around the whole body. So it carries it very, very quickly. I used to do this on my little boy James. He used to often get chest colds in the winter. I realise now that we were backed onto a swamp. And when we moved up into the mountaintop in the rainforest, James no longer had chest colds. It was, see, if there's recurring colds, you've got to look at why that would be. So I used to wrap this on his feet. He was 3. I'd wrap it on the bottom of his feet, and children love being wrapped up. And I'd put a sock on him and shoes and send him out to play. And every step he takes, what's happening? Bit more garlic, bit more garlic, bit more garlic juice going in. And at the end of the day, I would take his shoes and socks off to put him in the bath. And when I unwrapped him, the garlic looked like bits of dried out leather. There was no juice left. It had all gone up into his body and be used by his body. So that's what you can do to a baby. You can do it to a little one, because not all little ones like what I'm about to put on the board. This can be called the flu bomb, the COVID bomb, the cold bomb, the sinus bomb, the pneumonia bomb, the bronchitis bomb. And it starts with our two ones we know very well, the juice of a lemon. So remember what I said, this is a very fancy lemon and honey drink. And number 2 is 1 teaspoon of honey. But we're starting to get very involved now. The next ingredient is garlic. And this is a time to use this fine grater here. You can either use that really fine grater or crush it. And how much? Well, some people can handle a huge clove, some people can handle a little clove, some people can handle 2 cloves. It's as much as you dare. But it's usually 1 clove of crushed garlic. The next ingredient is ginger. And this is finely grated. Again, on that fine grater is an excellent. So grated, and it's usually 1/4 teaspoon. The next ingredient is cayenne pepper. How much cayenne pepper? As much as you can handle. Some people can handle a light shake. Some people can handle 1/4 teaspoon. Some people can handle 1/2 teaspoon. It's as much as you can handle. So cayenne pepper, and the 6th ingredient is eucalyptus oil. And there's definitely an amount of eucalyptus oil, and that is 1 drop. A lady contacted us at Misty and said, I've got the eucalyptus oil, but I can't use it for the flu bomb. I said, why not? She said, it says not fit for human consumption. I said, we're not asking you to drink the bottle. It's one drop. And you know, the safety, they go a bit over the top with it. It's only one drop. And in Australia, you can buy eucalyptus cough drops. What do you think's in them? Eucalyptus oil, that's right. And with that, you put it into half a cup of hot water and drink it. And what many have found, we call it the flu bomb, what many have found is that the symptoms of a cold, whether it be a cold, flu, sinus, sore throat, chest, any respiratory, it eases the symptoms. And usually a person will take it 3 times a day, and often within a day or two, the cold is gone. We have a lot of bush lemons, wild bush lemons growing on our property. We've got 450 acres, and they don't last very long, the bush lemons. So we get the staff to squeeze them and pour them into ice cube trays and then flip them out, and we've got cubes of lemon in our freezer. Well, one very industrious staff member decided to make a lot of flu bombs. Jugs of flu bombs with all of these lemons, and poured them into the little cubes. So we had bags of cubes of flu bombs. And I thought, what? But you know what? It turned out to be really handy, because if a guest started to get a bit of a cold, all they had to do is get a cube of flu bomb, put it into a cup, pour some boiling water on, and they had instant flu bomb. So at first I thought, this is crazy, but after a while I thought, no, it's not crazy at all. It's great, because if a guest is getting a cold and wants a flu bomb, can you imagine that's going to take the staff 15 minutes to put it all together? And so guess what we do all the time now? We've got cubes of flu bomb in our freezers. So that's the flu bomb. And we've got the sliced garlic to wrap on the bottom of the feet for little ones that quite can't handle to take the flu bomb. In the 1940s, the Common Cold Research Unit was set up in Salisbury, England, to find the cause and the cure of the common cold. Well, after 40 years, they've closed down in disgrace because of a total failure to find the cause and the cure of the common cold. Do you know why? Because it's a house clean. Did everyone get that? It's a house clean. And you're blowing your nose. What are you blowing out? Waste. Waste. You just gotta ride it. Just go with it. Sleep through the day, have a few flu bombs, just keep the food light, maybe just soups, and in a couple of days, your cold will be gone. That's why they'll never find the cause or the cure of the common cold. The pharmaceutical company was hoping to get a drug that they could market, and everyone take this and they'll all be better, but not so. See, we live in a body that's got an inbuilt ability to heal itself. But when we give it the right conditions, exercise every day, go to bed early, eat great food, keep well hydrated, you won't need to get many colds. So let's go over to another part of the flu bomb recipe, which is ginger. And ginger, it's important to remember this because it helps to know that ginger is great for inflammation, but a certain type of inflammation. So the inflammation that the grated ginger poultice is good for is joint. So remember this, joint, ginger, joint pain, joint inflammation, ginger is the best. So we're going to make a poultice for the ginger. And notice what I've got here. I've got the piece of plastic, and the plastic's important because that insulates the poultice, and it also prevents it from chilling, and it also protects your clothes against the juice from the poultice. And notice my cloth is much bigger than in fact, I'm going to use one here that's a little bit bigger. It's usually about, I think this is about 10 inches by 10 inches. That's a good size. And I place that over and then I grate. And you can do it on the very fine grater. That will have a lot of juice. Or this is a good one, this little one here. And I'm going to make the ginger poultice. There's no need to peel it. But this ginger poultice that I'm making, I can use for, let's say, sore knees. Now, why would the knee be sore? So whenever there's a sore knee, I always look at history. Did something happen to the knee? Sometimes it's an old injury. And if it's particularly sore today, then I look at, well, what did you do yesterday? Oh, I played a game of tennis. And halfway through the game of tennis, the knee started to hurt. What should have happened at that point? Listen. If you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will start screaming. And so this lady kept playing. And so by the end of the day, yes, her knee, instead of whispering to her, the knee's starting to scream at her. And it's very inflamed. And I find that with many people, the problem they have maybe with the knee or the ankle, wherever it be, it's actually not so much the injury, it's just that they didn't give the injury the right conditions to heal. And that's where you've got to listen. So I have grated probably about 2 teaspoons of ginger here. And I think you can see that, yep, great, up on the board. And then I'm going to make a poultice. And to make the poultice, I bring the bottom one over, the top one over, I bring the sides over, and so I've made a little package. And then I turn that over and you will see already the juice coming out of that. And that's why you want a nice thin cotton so that the juice can come through. You want natural fibre. Now notice, and I think you can see there, yep, there's about 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre of plastic all the way around. But let's say, I think it's easy to just pretend I've got a sore wrist. And I can put it on like this. And notice that the plastic is barely touching my skin, just a little bit. And remember, the plastic insulates the poultice. It also prevents it from chilling if the air got to it, and it protects the clothes. And then I get, I think you call it an ACE bandage, a stretch bandage, and then I bandage that over it. And that's a great poultice if there's any inflammation in the joint. So very good for arthritis, very good for gout. What I always do when I apply the poultice, I always pray. I always ask God to bless the poultice because God made the body. He made the body to heal. And I ask God to please bless this herb that he made in ginger. But something to remember with ginger is if there's a lot of inflammation in that joint, within half an hour the skin can get very hot. And I've had guests say to me, it's burning. Well, it actually won't burn, but it feels like it might be burning. So if it's uncomfortable, we take it off straight away. Remember, you're listening to the body. You're listening, you're observing the body's response. So you take it off. And you'll see that the skin's not red, it's not burnt. But when the person says to me, it's burning, I take it off, I said, yeah, but how does it feel? And they usually go, oh, actually, I can move my wrist. It's not hurting anymore. It appears that the ginger pulls the inflammation out of the joint to the skin. So one lady, she heard about this ginger poultice, so she put it on her knee and it got very hot, but she left it there because it felt good. After a couple of hours, she took it off and the pain in her knee had gone right down and she could walk without pain. She was so excited, she put another one on in the afternoon. And it didn't get as hot, but it still got fairly hot. Then she had a shower and put another one on overnight, And in the morning when she took it off, her knee was swollen, red, and blistered. And she said, "What have I done?" I said, "Overdone it." "You've just overdone it." I said, "You won't be able to do a ginger poultice for a while." But she was just so excited, she went at it too hard. So I tell you this story because another lady, she tried it on her hip, and within half an hour, she had a red rash all over her skin, and she rang up complaining greatly, why didn't anyone tell her? And I said, "Well, actually, I've done it hundreds of times and I've never seen such a rash." She had very, very tender skin. It won't hurt you. It seems that it pulls the ginger out of the joint. So what we do is we say to a person, say they've got a sore wrist, well, let's put the ginger on, and it gets really hot, and if it's too hot, take it off. But some people say, "Oh no, it feels really good." So you could leave it a couple of hours. But I do suggest you do it in the afternoon and then take it off. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about castor oil compresses. That's a really nice, gentle one to do overnight. And as we go through today's class and tomorrow's class, you will see that you can alternate the poultices. They do slightly different things, but the ginger is for joint. One man put it on his little toe, which was very painful and swollen, and it got very hot, and the swelling went down, and he could move his toe. But the next day, the next toe was sore. So he put it on that toe. And then the next day, it was the next toe. Kept jumping. I said, "Did it jump to the other foot?" He said, "No." So for joint inflammation, very good for back inflammation. If someone hasn't lifted the right way, and I showed you yesterday how a little 2-year-old lifts. Remember, the back is straight. That's you lift with your thighs. But let's say someone has not lifting right, lifting heavy weights that night, the back is sore. A ginger poultice can be very good for that. It can get the inflammation out of the joint. So whether it be hip, whether it be knee, whether it be ankle, whether it be toes, any joints, you would use the ginger poultice. Ginger can also be used internally. It's one of the best anti-nausea herbs that we have. And if you buy at the health food shop herb, a medication, a herbal medication for car sickness or seasickness, it's just compressed ginger, because ginger is excellent for nausea. Low hydrochloric acid, if someone's not digesting well, to have just 1/4 cup of hot ginger tea before the meal, it can help with digestion. And even just hot ginger tea for the sore throat can be very nice. I was at a conference once, and we went out in the break, and there were herb teas there, and there was a lady with it was a grater like that, but it was a real tiny little one, and she was grating ginger, and she had a little teapot there, and I went, "Aha, ginger tea." She said, "Yes." She said, "I'm an entertainer, I'm a singer. I was in Greece a month ago. I lost my voice." She said, "This is a disaster for a singer." She said, "A little Greek lady made me some fresh ginger tea," she said, "and I sang that night." So she said, I travel with my little grater no matter where I am, and the ginger tea really helps. If someone's been shoveling snow and they come inside and they're very cold, give them a hot ginger tea. So the ginger also warms, and you can see that we used it in the flu bomb for that. If you're visiting someone and they've got a sore wrist or something, but they're busy doing something, you could make them a poultice, fold it over like this, and put it in a snap-lock bag and keep it in the fridge. Obviously, you wouldn't keep it in the fridge more than 24 hours because it's fresh vegetable matter. But when you take the ginger poultice off, you basically just throw it away. That's the beauty of using these cloths. Using the cloths means you haven't got ginger all through the bed, all through your clothes. It's contained. That's why it's important to make it very neatly so that it's contained. So ginger can be used internally and it can be used externally. Now we're going to have a look at potato. Potato is also for inflammation, but potato is used differently. So potato is used for tissue inflammation, whereas the ginger is for joint. And the potato, as you can imagine, is very gentle. So the potato can be used where you would not use the ginger. So if someone's got conjunctivitis, I think you call it pink eye, sore eye, it's very gentle on the eye. Sometimes you only need to make a potato poultice and lay it on the eye for even half an hour, and it can just bring that swelling right down, that soreness. Or if you have conjunctivitis, or another one is a blocked tear duct, you can put the potato poultice on overnight. So you would put the poultice on the eye, cover it with plastic, and then bandage it on. So you make this poultice almost the same way that you make the ginger, although I'm going to use a slightly bigger grate. Now, because the potato is used for tissue inflammation, it's very good for sprained ankle, also for ingrown toenail. You can also use it for a splinter. Maybe a splinter has gone in and it's too sore to get the splinter out, and now it's raised, red, swollen. Potato's very good at that. So here's my grated potato, and I've probably used a little too much. You don't want to use too much because there's nothing worse than grated potato juice leaking all through the bed or all through the clothes. So that's about how much you would use. And then again, you bring the bottom cloth up and the top cloth down, and you bring the sides in and you turn it over. And when I turn it over, you'll see that the juice is already coming out. And that's a nice one to use on the sore eye or ingrown toenail or a splinter that has gone in and you can't get it out. And it'll, little by little, reduce all the swelling. A friend rang me one day. It's when we were in the rainforest and we all had our babies, and I could hear her little one crying. I said, "What's the matter with little Louie, who's 10 months old?" She said, "I don't know." She said, "I don't know what to do." She was crying. His little penis was swollen twice the size. What are you going to do? And if you take him to emergency, what are they going to do? And sometimes you don't know why. Because she was a hippie, her little boy was crawling around. Did something bite it, or did a little bit of dirt get in? You don't know. And you don't want to play with that area. So I told her to make a grated potato poultice just like this. I said, just put it over his whole scrotum area, put his nappy on, you call it a diaper. She put it on, and he immediately stopped crying as much because it was so red and swollen, and the cooling potato brought some relief, and the little fella fell asleep. She put him to bed. She said she kept going in because he slept for 2 hours. Poor little guy had been crying almost non-stop for an hour, and she'd put him in a cool bath. He didn't want to be in a bath. He wanted his mother to hold him. Oh, it's very hard. So after 2 hours, she quickly took the nappy or the diaper off, took the poultice off. Everything's back to normal. Whew, how nice. Sometimes you don't know. But if there is ever tissue swelling, the grated potato poultice is very helpful. So we've also used it many times for treading on a rusty nail. So here we are, way up in the rainforest, and one of the reasons I explored these was because I didn't want to give my children drugs. And another reason I explored it is because I was an hour from a hospital, So you need to have these little bits and pieces up your sleeve. And how simple is the grated potato poultice? And so treading on a rusty nail, he put the grated potato poultice on. And when we took it off a few hours later, there was no redness and the wound was oozing. The wound must ooze because it's got to heal from the inside out. So when my daughter-in-law brought her little son, Sonny, he was crying. He'd been at the job site. Don't little boys want to follow the men? And then, oops, trod on a rusty nail coming out of a board. And he just had the little rubber Crocs on, gone through the croc. It was just a blessing he had that on because otherwise the whole nail would have gone into his foot. So I guess the rusty nail went in about 1/2 inch, about 1 centimetre. And when they brought him to me, he's dirty. He's a boy. So the first thing you do is clean him up, put him in a bath, and that certainly calmed him down. And I made a little grated potato poultice about this size, put his foot on it, and then bandaged that on his foot, put a sock on and put his little croc back on. And he left 1/2 an hour later very happy because Grandma had bandaged him all up and it wasn't so painful. So that night, a few hours later, they gave him a bath and put a fresh one on. And you see, that's going to draw things out. So you want to put a fresh one on often. And the next morning when he woke up, the wound was oozing a little bit. There was no redness and no soreness, but they put shoes and socks on him this day. By the end of the day, it was a little red and a little sore. So after the bath, they put another grated potato poultice on. Now, this happened every day for 3 days. And so 3 days of grated potato poultice overnight. So after the 3rd night of grated potato poultice overnight, when he woke up, it all looked great again and it was starting to heal. By the end of the day, no redness, no soreness at all. So what's the body saying? I'm right now. Now, if 2 days later it starts to get red, what do? Put another grated potato poultice on. It's so simple. That's why this little formula is so important. You look at the history, why it's happened. The symptoms tell you you need to do something here, and the body's response is your best guide. But after that 3rd night, my son William brought me the poultice. He said, Mum, look at this. There are bits of fluorescent blue metal on top of the poultice. The potato had actually pulled the rusty metal out of the wound and cleaned it up. So it's quite remarkable what it can do. So for any tissue inflammation, you use the grated potato. What I have done, and a lady rang me one day and she said, Barbara, my little girl trod on a rusty nail and it nearly went through the top of her foot. She's 10. She said, we've heard your lecture, we've got a grated potato poultice on it, but it's still a little bit sore. So that's quite deep. So I said, there's something else I'd like you to try here. And this is something that can increase the power of your poultice, and it's a water treatment. So we're using water here, and we're going to use hot and cold water. Now, when you apply hot water to the body, it has a stimulating effect. And we know when we get into a hot bath and we're a little bit cool, it's tingling. And it only takes 3 minutes to get from stimulating to slowing down. So what are we stimulating? We're actually stimulating blood. And what does the blood contain? The blood contains oxygen, it contains water, it contains nutrients in the red blood cells. That's what they carry, all of this. So they're your red blood cells. But you know what also the blood does? It carries away waste. And we'll look at this in a little bit more detail when we look at the immune system this afternoon. But it also contains white blood cells. Now, when you look at that, that's everything we need, everything a wound needs. But when you apply cold water, it has a stimulating effect. I think I told you when I first dived into your cold river on the first day, I went, and Sylvia said, "You all right?" I said, "Yes, just cold." Stimulating effect. That's why you go, and the reason is because we're warm-blooded creatures, so when cold water touches us, there's a reaction. The reaction is that it stimulates blood movement, but it takes 30 seconds once you're in cold water to get from stimulating to slowing down. So do you know what we use in hydrotherapy? We use those times. So we do hot for 3 minutes, and before it's got time to slow down, we plunge it into the cold. And I'll look at this a bit more when I look at the immune system this afternoon. And then before it's got time to slow down, we plunge it back into the hot. And you do this 3 times. So this lady, whose little girl had trod on a rusty nail, I said, get 2 buckets, one with hot, one with cold, and ideally ice, and do the alternating hot and colds, and then put a fresh grated potato poultice on, and ring me in an hour. She rang me, she said, there's no red, there's no swelling, there's no tenderness, and she's laughing. I said, good, we're right. Now, if she'd rang me and said, it's really swollen, it's really red, I'd just say go to emergency because I'm not there. I don't know what's happening. But I have to tell you, I've never had to go to emergency. And raising 8 children, you get all sorts of things. They fall out of their Tarzan vines in the bush. They chop their hand with when they're chopping kindling. We've had it all. And we have not had to go to emergency because all of this works. So notice what I said to that mother, ring me back and tell me what your daughter's response is. The response was there was no swelling, it had settled down. So with my little grandson, Sonny, the grated potato was enough. But I think in this case, it had probably gone in 3 times deeper than little Sonny's. And so the hot and colds made a big difference. And these alternating hot and colds, why they are so effective is because they're stimulating blood flow. And when you stimulate blood flow to an area, you've now got more oxygen, more water, more nutrients, more waste being taken away, more white blood cells, everything we need when there's an injury. And we'll explore that in more detail when we look at the immune system this afternoon. And so ends our Natural Remedies 1 class. Tomorrow we're going to look at Natural Remedies 2. And in Natural Remedies 2, we're going to look at some other poultices that you can do. And before we go over to questions, can you see that? We've already got a syrup forming. There we go. It's up on the screen. So if there was someone coughing and couldn't stop, you could use that right now. But ideally, we let it sit for 24 hours and then it can be used. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. These remedies all work. I use them when it's, I used to go to the doc. That was my first thing I would think of when I was sick, when I got a sore throat, because as soon as my sinuses start running, I know what's going to happen. It's going to come down my throat. I'm going to get a cough. I'm going to get an infection. I know that's my thought. This is my thought process. But then when I started doing these remedies, I have not been to the doctors. They work. They really work. So your first thought, all you need to do is to stock your pantry, your fridge with these items. And then you're going to find yourself pulling out different items than taking the phone and calling the doctor. So give it a try because it does work. We just have a few Q&A now. We're going to answer some of your questions. Barbara is. Okay. So our first question, what makes fingernails split, crack, and peel? And what can be done to fix them?
It is an indication. Our nails, our skin is all an indication of the nutritional status of the body. And a lot of people aren't getting proper nutrition. Obviously, people they're eating fast, devitalized food aren't, but also just eating food that hasn't been grown organically, they're not getting enough nutrition. Our nails are made of minerals, so it's very important to have fruits and vegetables every day, especially dark green leafies. And so changing the diet, becoming better hydrated, can often heal the nails.
Thank you. Okay, what can we do about poor nutrient absorption and digestion related to EPI and IBS?
When we go on our journey through our gastrointestinal tract, I think it's Friday,
Okay, yes.
we're going to be looking at digestion in detail. I like the Proverbs 14 verse 6, knowledge is easy to him that understands. I want to give you an understanding of how your gastrointestinal tract works, then you automatically have the knowledge on how to treat it. But when the food's not getting absorbed properly, it's often because it's not getting broken down properly. And it's often not getting broken down properly because of low hydrochloric acid. And low hydrochloric acid can be the result of drinking with meals, which waters it down, stress, blocks the release, eating all day long, eating the largest meal at the end of the day. All of these can contribute to low hydrochloric acid. But I mentioned when I looked at ginger, have a quarter of a cup of hot ginger tea just before the meal. That can boost hydrochloric acid and boost digestion.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, is alkaline water actually good? And what about, is it Kagan, aka living water?
Yep, alkaline water is great. As we looked at yesterday, an alkaline condition in the body is a condition that is conducive for healing. Cancer thrives in an acid environment. The only part of our body that should be alkaline is the stomach. So Kagan alkaline water is great water, but please don't drink it with your meals because you'll dilute your stomach acid.
Right. Good point. Okay. How can you reverse osteoporosis? And well, I'll let you answer that one first, and this next one is a question all it's unknown.
You can reverse osteoporosis, and we've seen many people do that. And in my book, Sustain Me, I have a chapter called Building Better Bones, and it shows all the things that you can do to build your bones.
Okay. And best way to prevent kidney stones?
Best way to prevent kidney stones, we looked at that yesterday when we looked at the acid alkaline. So go to a more alkaline diet, and you can prevent kidney stones.
Okay. Does drinking out of copper water bottles actually make water healthier?
Yes, it does. It alkalizes the water. The copper alkalizes the water.
Okay. Interesting. Can you speak on how life emotions can create a physical reaction in the body?
Have you got a few hours?
Yeah, really.
I think we all realize that happens. And one of my favorite writers, she said, cast off care and anxious thought when you sit to dine. Because when you're stressed at the meal table, you're not going to digest your meal properly. And, you know, everyone that's been in war will know the effect of the mind on the colon, and every bride often has diarrhea the day before her wedding day. You know, these are things that or situations we all can identify with a little bit, and there's no doubt about it. And there are whole encyclopedias written on the effect of the mind on the body. It's like one lady, she said, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. I said, don't say that anymore. She said, why not? Because I said, all your cells are listening and they're saying, looks like we can't sleep. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. If you say you can sleep, that's a good start to actually getting more sleep.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's going to end our Q&A right now. What we are going to do and what is going to be available, there is some book signing. and some photos that we can take. And we'll do that for about maybe about 15 minutes. And then there's going to be more opportunities this evening and also again through the rest of the programs. We're going to end after we're ending now, but Barbara's going to be in for another 15 minutes. We're going to do a quick door prize. And then also we're going to be back this for the evening session at 3:30 here. Okay. And so we have a break in between, about a couple hours. You're welcome. Leave your things, go out, come back. Thank you. And that, and that bottle there. Well, when I hold on. And leave your things. Feel free to go out. You may want to get some lunch, and out. So you have a couple hour break there. And then we're going to resume back here at 3:30 for our evening session. And we just drew one door prize. Okay. This is for Matthew Decker. Okay. So this